All right, I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran, the Oracle of London. Alexander, let's do another update on Epstein. What article do we have here that we want to pull up? Let me share the screen. It's 7 unanswered questions about Jeffrey Epstein's death that the mainstream media needs to be talking about. Let me pull that one up, Alexander, and we can talk about this article. Let me share the screen with you and with our viewers. There we go. All right, it's from the End of the American Dream blog, authored by Michael Snyder. So Alexander, let's go through the 7 unanswered questions. Before we go through the 7 of them, what do you think, in your own personal opinion, what's the most pending unanswered question about Epstein's quote-unquote suicide?
Right. Well,
I say that laughing because, you know, there's a lot to, it's a tragic laugh. I mean,
well, first of all, I mean, there are so many questions, and no doubt we will be going through them. I mean, I think there needs to be a proper investigation into what happened, and there's been talk that there's an FBI investigation. But firstly, the starting point has to be 2 things. Firstly, the autopsy. There must be an autopsy report into how he died, and apparently there is. And I gather that it's not yet been published, and that's very strange. The second is, I've heard reports, and they really do concern me, that apparently he was not being filmed, so that there is apparently no camera recording of what happened. Now, if that's true, that's terrible. And the third is, what were the prison officials doing, and why weren't they there? Why wasn't he being kept under proper observation? Now, somebody is responsible. Somebody made decisions about how Epstein was going to be looked after whilst in his prison. And I think we need to know who that person was and why that person made the decisions that he or she did. And we also need to know the cause of death. Now, all of this is hugely important because, of course, the internet is swirling with stories about what might have happened to Epstein. And given that the kind of person he was and the sort of things he was doing, running a huge organized sex abuse, child abuse system, I think that the public interest is absolutely served by getting to the bottom, to the truth of this thing. And whoever was responsible, I'm sorry to use this, to say this frankly, I think they need to be held to account, and if appropriately, and punished in the appropriate way.
well, I don't know if anyone's.
Well,
I'll take a more cynical, I guess, approach. I mean, take the Vegas shooter, for example. Remember what happened in Vegas? I mean, did anything come out of that?
No.
Even Weinstein. Does anyone really know what happened to Harvey Weinstein? I mean, from what I understand, I think he's walking around completely free man with his hundreds of millions.
Yes. Well, Alex, I didn't say that was what would happen with Epstein. I said that the public interest is that this should happen.
Should happen, right.
Whether it will is another matter. But
that's if he's even dead. There's a lot of, you said the internet is swirling with a lot of theories, a lot of
a good start
that he's not even dead.
Well, a good starting place for that is the autopsy. Yeah. So let's get the autopsy.
Let's get to it. So so here's the article from Snyder. The following are 7 unanswered questions about Jeffrey Epstein's death that the mainstream media needs to be talking about.
Well, and there we are.
Media, Alexander, needs to be talking about.
Yeah.
And
there we. First question, why are the autopsy results being delayed? And I mean, that's absolutely spot on. I mean, I would have thought that there would be particular urgency in publishing the autopsy results. Now, the story we're being told is that he hanged himself. If he hanged himself, well, I'm not a physician, but that doesn't seem to me a very complicated case for an autopsy. Surely we can come up with a quick answer quickly provided, or if not a full autopsy, at least an interim one. But it seems that the autopsy is being delayed, and that is extremely concerning, and that's going to cause rumours to grow even further, And let's just say frankly, with good cause, actually. I mean, people will be wondering why they're not being given answers.
Says the New York City Medical Examiner's Office said Sunday that it had completed an autopsy.
Well, there you go. Well, there you go. So why is it being held back? What's so concerning about this autopsy that it's been delayed, given, as I said, who Epstein was? Now, sometimes with autopsies, there's concerns about members of the family, but both of Epstein's parents are dead. He doesn't seem to have any children. And as far as I know, he has one brother who seems to be keeping a very, very quiet profile at the moment, if he's even alive, which I'm not sure about, by the way. So there doesn't seem to be any reason why this autopsy has been delayed, and I think that's a very bad sign.
All right, number 2, you mentioned cameras, Alexander. What's the number 2 unanswered?
Well, what will the cameras show? And apparently we now have an answer to that, because apparently they show nothing. Because I've been reading a report, which I hope isn't true, that in fact there were no cameras in the cell, and that there was a camera apparently on the ward, but all it was doing was pointing at the door of his cell.
So they were filming the doors, but there was nothing that was actually filming the inside of the cell, if we're understanding this correctly.
Well, that is correct. I guess that's what I'm hearing. Now, that's true. Again, that is hugely concerning. And there's apparently stories that he wasn't in the proper dress for somebody on a suicide watch, and that the the prison officials who were supposed to be monitoring him weren't monitoring him as regularly as they should be, in part because they were exhausted from long hours of overwork. Now, that's the explanation I'm hearing. I don't know how far I believe it, but I mean, it all seems to stack up and look very concerning indeed.
So the last line of Snyder's number 2 unanswered question says, so if someone paid a visit to Epstein, there should be video evidence of it. That's if someone paid a visit to him.
Well, indeed.
I.e. the killer.
Well, indeed, if there was one.
If there was one.
If there was one. But, you know.
There you go. Number 3.
Why
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you say it. Why was Jeffrey Epstein taken off suicide watch?
Well, that's a big one.
I mean, really, that does seem extraordinary. I mean, it seems, and, you know, I don't want to, I'm not somebody who generally engages in conspiracies, though one should say conspiracies can sometimes arise. But look, he's taken off suicide watch. He's left unsupervised. There's no television cameras monitoring him. And the guards apparently are too tired to check. Well, it's almost as if I'm choosing my words very carefully. It's almost as if somebody was creating a situation or setting up a situation which made it easier for for Epstein to die. I'm choosing my words very carefully. Now, what we need to know is who was making that decision. So there has to be a chain of command here. And we need to have an explanation and who that person was and why they did what they did.
You know, the interesting part about the first suicide attempt of Epstein was it happened during that big blackout. Do you think those could have been connected? I mean, that the blackout was intentional in order to try to off Epstein?
Well, I think that's a huge speculation. I mean, I'm not going to go there. I don't know. I mean, all kinds of extraordinary things have been said. That's far and away not the most extraordinary. They're much wilder things. But the fact of the matter is, he apparently told the authorities that his previous so-called suicide attempt wasn't a suicide attempt, but that he was actually assaulted.
Yeah, it says beaten up and called a child predator.
Well, there you go. So if that's true, given that it is widely known, I mean, it's universally known that people who engage in paedophile activities or sex abuse activities against minors are regularly targeted by other offenders, other prisoners, that they are at great danger from other prisoners. Why was he left in contact with other prisoners. I mean, if that's really indeed what happened, it seems, I mean, it gets more and more bizarre, actually. And so many questions. So what's the next question?
Number four, Alexander.
Why did the guards break prison rules and not check on him every 30 minutes? Excellent question. I mean, if there wasn't first of all, 30 minutes in itself seems to me a long gap in time. One would have expected a person like this to be under constant surveillance. And there are means to keep people under constant surveillance. And we have received at the Duran, as lots of media groups, every media group that has covered the story has received reports from people who have experienced suicide watch, either because they were themselves the target, the objects of it, or much more often because they were participating in it, or because they are familiar with the procedures in their own organizations. And all of them say that the essential part of suicide watch is continuous surveillance. Surveillance, checking on someone every 30 minutes is not continuous surveillance, but it seems that even that didn't happen in Epstein's case. And Epstein was the most prominent prisoner in the entire justice system of the United States. He was somebody who was involved in a huge case, which millions of people were taking an interest in, where there are thousands or at least dozens, lots of victims or potential victims, and where there's rumors that all sorts of other people, some of them very important people, are implicated. This person, first and foremost, should have been kept under surveillance so that he could be brought to trial and answer the questions that the American people and the world expected him to answer. It's incredible that this wasn't the case.
He had a cellmate, and they took away the cellmate, which is in and of itself. I mean,
it's extraordinary. As I said, I don't want to go too far, but it's almost, I can repeat what I said, it's almost as if someone was setting up a situation that would facilitate his death.
All right, this one is interesting, number 5, Alexander. I like this one.
Yeah. Well, then why would Jeffrey Epstein try to kill himself if he was adjusting so well to prison?
We discussed this during our live stream.
We did.
We tried to get a little bit, even though we're not psychologists, psychiatrists, we tried to delve a little bit into the mind of Epstein, why he would take his life.
Yes. Well, we don't know, but again, there are lots of unanswered questions here. People who are intent on taking their lives can behave all kinds of ways, and it may be that Epstein was faking the fact that he was adjusting in order to throw his guards off the track as he went ahead and committed suicide. That's one possibility. I'm not saying it's true, by the way, but certainly, given what a mysterious man Epstein was, this is just one more mystery. What was in his mind before he killed himself, or died, perhaps I should say?
Yeah, the Daily Mail says there was a source that said there was no indication that he might try to take his own life. Quote, "From what I saw, he was finally starting to adjust to prison. I think he was comforted by the rigidity of his new life."
Well, there you go.
That's interesting.
Well, indeed. Why? So number 6, why did Jeffrey Epstein tell guards that someone was trying to kill him? Well, if that is true, that's the first I've heard of it, but if that's true, and it says it was reported by mainstream media, then that is a huge question. Because if Epstein was telling his guards, the authorities, the prison authorities, that he was in danger of his life, then firstly, that obviously casts doubt on the suicide theory, but more to the point, it makes the absence of precautions to protect him even more remarkable. And I come back to what I said. I've said it, I think this is the 3rd time I'm going to say it. It's almost as if somebody was setting up a situation that would facilitate his death.
It's very much like one of the Godfather movies, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Many of the scenes there were they set up all the conditions to off a person.
Absolutely.
They have the police paid off. They have, all these people paid off, and that's it. They're gonna make sure that they kill that person that they want to kill.
Indeed. I mean, all I would say about that is, of course, if that is indeed what happened, or if anything like that happened, then there would be evidence of it. If people are questioned, if bank records are checked, if wire transfers are checked, if paperwork is looked through, the names of all the people involved ought to be known. And if such a conspiracy did take place, it ought to be possible to establish it and to find out the truth and to act against those people who did this thing. That, of course, is always contingent on a serious investigation taking place. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, let's wrap it up with number 7.
Well, there we go. How could Epstein kill himself in a prison where the cells had been specifically designed to prevent that from happening? Well, I think the whole of America and much of the world is asking that question. And of course, I mean, the whole point about Epstein, I come back to what I've said many times. I said it on our live. This is not any prisoner. It's not somebody who's been caught doing some, shoplifting or something like that, gets depressed in prison, and maybe you should be keeping an eye on him. This is Jeffrey Epstein, the man with the extraordinary house in Manhattan, the man with the apartment in Paris, the man with the property in Palm Beach, the man with the private island, the man who's been spoken about as being at the center of this extraordinary network involving all these prominent people, the man who operated the Alita Express airplane, the man who had so-called massages done, who's been spoken of as having cameras in his, the rooms where all these awful things were happening, who may have been blackmailing people, on behalf of other people, whose fortune is a mystery which remains completely unresolved. This is the person. This person is somebody, almost more than anyone else in the justice system, that you needed to keep alive. Because there are so many questions there that go not just to the fate of his victims, but to the whole public health of the United States and of the trust the American people have in their criminal justice system, and indeed not just their criminal justice system, but all of their institutions. You would have thought that this person, almost more than anyone else, steps would be taken to keep him alive. Now, as we both know, Alex, as is well known, there were lots of jokes before his suicide that Jeffrey Epstein needed to be careful because too many people would desire his death. And here he is dead. And he dies where? In a kind of prison or institution which is supposed to make that impossible. Of course, people are asking questions.
Yeah, I think a viewer sent us an email today which made the same point about the prison cell that's specifically designed so as it's almost impossible to do yourself harm. It says here between the floor and the ceiling is like 8 or 9 feet. There's no way.
Exactly.
There's no way for you to connect to anything. But they're paper level, not strong enough.
Exactly. So we need a proper investigation. Yeah. Will it come? Will we get it?
Well, look at this article, Alexander, that I just pulled up.
No. Well, there we go.
Something doesn't smell right. Last Epstein prison for serious irregularities. A lot of people are very skeptical as to if Barr is going to really press this. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I hope he does. I don't know. I mean, it seems extraordinary, and I think he's hit that. If those are his words, he's got it right. This doesn't smell right.
Well, here's a quote from Barr. It's update 11 Eastern Time. Attorney General Bill Barr has made his first statement since Jeffrey Epstein's death, promising that he will get to the bottom of the situation because Epstein's victims, quote, deserve justice and they will get it.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I said on the live that Epstein's death in and of itself should not bring an end to the investigation, given that Epstein was at the heart of a network. And there are other people in the network who appear to have been implicated in the things that he was doing. So there should not be an end to this investigation. And hopefully Barr's words suggest that he's going to pursue this investigation and make sure that the Department of Justice sees it through. But that's the investigation into the things that Epstein did. There needs to be a separate investigation, every bit as important, in my opinion, into establishing how he came to die, because that is absolutely a central question. And however many people are prosecuted, however many charges are brought, however much exposure is given to the kind of things people did, if the question of how Epstein himself came to die is not resolved, neither will all the questions be. People will say his death ensured the protection of some people. So we need to find out how this extraordinary death came to happen. It is in the public interest of the United States and of its people to find out the truth. And I hope that is what happens now.
Yeah, I think there's 3 investigations, from what I understand, that are going on or will go on: the FBI, the DOJ, and I think the Southern District is saying that they're going to investigate as well.
Well, I hope all of these investigations don't cross each other's wires. And at some point, it seems to me what needs to happen is that they all need to be taken centralized and brought out under control, and a really tough, really hard-nosed, incorruptible investigator needs to be put in charge of them, who's prepared to go and interview all these people and find out the truth. And as I said, it ought to be possible to establish the truth.
Can I make one quick question? Make a point, maybe a question. I mean, there's a lot of speculation, and we'll wrap it up after this. Yes. There's a lot of speculation that Epstein was perhaps intelligence, maybe Mossad. I've heard British intelligence. Yeah. Obviously U.S. But to me, one thing, and this may be an unpopular view, and people in the comments will probably, rail on me for it, but I think an intelligence agency, this doesn't serve them, this type of death or this type of offing of this guy. It seems to me it doesn't serve a very sophisticated intelligence agency to do it, does it?
No, I quite agree with that. Can I just say the origins of the story that Epstein was involved in intelligence is a comment that Jim Acosta made during his confirmation.
Alex Acosta.
Alex Acosta, not during the confirmation, actually, whilst he was being vetted by the Trump people before being proposed for his job in the administration. And he said to them that he didn't go after Epstein harder because he was told that it was above his pay grade and that Epstein had intelligence connections. I have to say, I think you are right. I don't think an intelligence agency would have murdered Epstein, if that's what it was, in this kind of fashion. I think that's stretching it too far. What they would do is something completely different, which is that they would pull whatever strings they had in the United States, use all the blackmail material, which he had presumably provided them with, in order to make sure that he was sent into a quiet place, put away in a quiet place, and then perhaps repatriated to the intelligence agency of whichever country the intelligence agency he was working for. I say that because I don't think it's very likely that he was working for US intelligence, if he was working for intelligence at all. The thing we've got to understand about Epstein was that he was a man of mystery, partly because he wanted to create mysteries about himself. And I would not be surprised if he deliberately fostered stories about himself being connected to intelligence. It's the kind of thing that I can imagine him having done. So on balance, I agree with you. I think that if somebody helped him to die, I'm choosing my words very carefully here, I don't think it would have been an intelligence agency. This seems to me implausible, but we will see.
I think you're exactly right, Alexander. And I'll even bring a personal anecdote, and I'm sure you've seen this too when you travel to Russia and to Moscow, and you're, with groups of people, you meet a lot of people. There are a lot of Russians who are in these expat communities who also like to foster a lot of this mysterious, thing to them that maybe they're FSB or maybe they're not. They like to foster this type of thing around them because it brings intrigue, it brings, conversation. And a lot of times people kind of, use this type of mystery to maybe get to a business endeavor or something, or to kind of, create this aura about them. So it wouldn't be uncommon if he was within this group of socialites, this elite, for him to create this type of aura that he's something more than a pedophile scumbag. Maybe
exactly
to underground organizations and mafias. That would not surprise me at all.
No, I wouldn't surprise me in the slightest that he
There's some notorious evil. Vicious mafias that are peddling in the trafficking of.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm quite sure that he was connected to those. We're not discounting the possibility that he was involved.
We're just discussing,
We're discussing it. I have to say, the more I thought about this, the less likely I think it is that he was working for an intelligence agency. I think if he was, I think that the US authorities would have noted it. And I don't think he was working for the US authorities. And I think they'd have acted very quickly to shut his operation down, because I don't think they would have wanted lots and lots of people in the United States, top people in the United States, implicated in the way that is being alleged. So that might not have involved arresting him, but I can just imagine people coming round from the FBI or the CIA and speaking to the whichever intelligence agency it was and saying, look, you're going too far here. You've got to stop. If you don't stop, we will make sure that you are made to stop. That's my own gut feeling about the story. And certainly, I don't think that, as I said, they were involved in affecting his death. It just doesn't add up to me. And I just think, as you said, it's implausible.
All right. This was going to be like a 5-10 minute video, but it's such an interesting story that it kind of dragged out a little longer. But that's all right. Guys, remember to click that subscribe button. Remember to click that notifications bell. I am almost certain, Alexander, this video will get demonetized. So, guys, you can donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribe Star.
We're only asking the questions everybody's asking. We're not giving answers.
The purpose of a video like this is so that we can have a kind of a brainstorming, open conversation. And, of course, we really want to hear what you're going to say in the comments as well. I mean, we don't have any more answers than anybody else.
Yes, no.
Talking about this story.
Precisely, but can I just say, Mr. Snyder, whoever he is, I don't know him, but I mean, his 7 questions were pretty spot on, I thought.
Very spot on, very spot on. And what else, Alexander, but going to the Duran shop and maybe purchasing a mug. There you go.
No, we haven't got the same mug.
No, you have the logo mug.
I have the logo mug. You've got the
Putin mug, as we dub it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm drinking green tea from it this time because, as I said, it's been a funny sort of day. It's been sometimes very hot, sometimes very cold, sometimes very wet, sometimes very dry. I've been walking my dogs in my marvelous 100% cotton green long-sleeved T-shirt, and of course, it's got the Duran logo there, and so does the mug, the Duran logo. And there's a fantastic, great mug, keeps me refreshed when I need to be, and keeps me warm when I sometimes need to be. And that's sometimes what the tea does. So this is the perfect mug to keep you warm and refreshed. And this is the perfect shirt to keep you cool and or warm, as the case may be. You've got other brilliant shirts on our shop. Help the Duran by going to our shop, buy these great things there, and Alex will tell you how.
Just click on the link in the description box down below, theduranshop.com. Thank you, Alexander. Take care, everybody.